evening, everybody. I know you normally see me on a Thursday night, but we have a special Monday night town hall. We're so excited to bring this to all of our parents and all our caregivers in Hillsborough County, and hopefully in further reaches from there. We have a wonderful panel of professionals who work in our ESE departments at the school districts, as well as people who have specialties in those. And we even have those who are going to talk about legislative issues when it comes to our ESE families and caregivers. So we want you to sit back. We want you to listen. Hopefully you'll get a lot out of this tonight. This is going to be set up. A lot of it's going to be set up for our families who are kind of brand new. Maybe they're just getting started in with their students at their schools or elementary schools, and maybe this process is a little confusing and the clarity isn't there, and you just have some really basic questions and you're afraid to ask. Well, tonight is your night. So I'm going to dive into this in just a minute. I'm going to give us a little bit more information before we go forward. And before we go forward, I want to go ahead and introduce just a couple people first, and then everyone, as you speak, I'll have you introduce yourself. That way we take up as much, get as much time in the hour. So first, School Board Chair Lynn Gray, would you please introduce yourself? Oh, I think you've muted.
Whoops, here we go. Thank you, Frank Reyes and Earlishia Oates and our fabulous Hillsborough County Public Schools staff. I am the board chair, very much interested in what you all are interested in, and ESE is such a difficult subject area to really comprehend with the 504, the laws, which I know Kristen Davis will share, and Kim Workman, but also the vocational tech. There again, we have various bills that revolve around that subject area and a growing student interest and population within that field of education. So thank you all for putting this on, Frank and Earlishia. And again, I am very interested in your questions. So let's have a great evening and get full of knowledge.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. And Ms. Oates, you want to jump in there too, real quick?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us as we talk about the ESE process and steps we can take to be advocates for our children. I want to thank all of Hillsborough County employees for agreeing to take time out of their day, after a long working day, to join us and have these important conversations with the parents and the families so they can be advocates for their kids.
Very good. Thank you, Earlishia. And Earlishia is the VP of Advocacy for Hillsborough County Council PTA, is doing an amazing job. So I'm so thankful for all of her work. Please follow her if you're not already, and you'll see everything that's happening in our community. So out of respect for everyone's time, because we only have an hour, let's get right to this. And I'm going to throw the first question out. And as we go forward, Earlishia and I will just kind of rotate back and forth. So what is the difference for those of us, this is brand new to us, what is the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan, and what's a portfolio?
Okay, I think, okay, I was going to say, I think we have two different questions mixed in there. So I am going to turn it over to Deborah Mitchell, our supervisor of staffing, to share the differences between IEPs and 504 plans.
Okay. Hi, so I just wanted to say that both are plans that are there to address the student's needs. However, a 504 plan addresses the student's accommodation needs and is based on an identified condition that substantially impacts a student with a major life activity in the educational setting. Whereas an IEP is available to those who have been evaluated and identified under IDEA, the Individual Disability Education Act, and it also includes 13 different disability categories, and it shows a need for specially designed instruction. That's the difference between both. However, and both do address FAPE, and what is FAPE for that particular student, and afford them protections under either IDEA or 504, depending on how they're identified.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wortman, do you have somebody else that wanted to speak on that as well?
I just wanted to just add that really the difference, in a nutshell, is that 504 provides access to the instruction and provides the accommodations. With an IEP, the student has shown that there is a need for special education services. And as Deborah said, the specially designed instruction.
Very good. Earlishia, I'm going to give you the next one here in a second, but Ms. Amato brought up an interesting point. I'd like Ms. Mitchell, if you can speak on this, is the importance of clarifying 504 as a civil rights law that applies to the area of disability.
Yes, correct. So the 504 is a law that is protected by the Office for Civil Rights. And it is a federal law. IDEA is as well, but 504 is enforced specifically by the civil rights law, correct.
Alicia?
I think Suzette had something to add to that. Suzette is our Assistant Director for Staffing and Compliance.
I just wanted to piggyback on both what Deborah Mitchell just said and what Ms. Amato was pointing out, that under the American with Disabilities Act, it's now an AA amended act, that that law does protect students against disability discrimination. Section 1983-504 for students with disabilities. And those students who are eligible for an individual educational plan, IEP, under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, I'm spelling it out because I was reading the comments, which is the IDEA. Those students are also protected under Section 504 if they have an IEP. So it is against disability discrimination.
And we had a request to spell out FAPE, which is another one of the acronyms.
So FAPE is Free Appropriate Public Education. And students with disabilities, both under the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and under Section 504 of 1983, the Civil Rights Act, they are also eligible for a free appropriate public education, which means that they get the services that they need at no expense or cost to the family.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ample. Earlishia?
Yes. So the second question that Frank asked was about the portfolio, and that also goes into the other question. What makes up a portfolio? Is the parents invited to the table for the portfolio to decide what assessments is used? And how does that work? Which child gets to choose the option of being a part of that portfolio process?
Okay, and I think this is a perfect example of why it is so great for us to get together and have these conversations, just because some of the terminology gets very, very confusing. Portfolio can be just a generic term that, educators use where they, collect all information and work sample and data for the student. But we also have particular times where portfolios are a requirement for either promotion or for graduation. And I'm going to ask Tina Herbst, who is the ESE Supervisor of Instructional Support, to talk a little bit more about the portfolios required for third grade promotion.
So as Kim was saying, largely speaking, a portfolio is a collection of student work that's used as evidence to demonstrate a student's acquired skills around a set of standards. So the third grade portfolio in particular, because there's several different types of portfolios, but within regards to the third grade one, there is set criteria already that are, it comprises the portfolio. So the first and foremost thing that is looked at is after FSA. So what happens is if a student doesn't score at least a 2 on the FSA, then we look to the portfolio to collect evidence to show that the student has mastered third grade standards, but just maybe not by way of taking the Florida Standards Assessment. So it's an alternate pathway to show that mastery of the standards. So we look to the portfolio, and then the first component of the portfolio is going to be the Rti score and or the Achieve 3000 score, depending on the student. And that can actually, if they score at least at the 50th percentile, it can actually serve as an automatic promotion. If the student still does not meet that criteria, then there is a list of like it's 11 different items on this set like rubric that the student can participate in each of these assessment criteria. And if they score the certain score that is set for each of those assessments, and many of them are like reading baselines, mid-years, from the district assessments, it's set ones that the district has already predetermined. And so they will collect all of that evidence and it will go into the student portfolio. So that is third grade portfolio in a nutshell.
And if I could jump in, this third grade portfolio, this is not a requirement for students with disabilities or IEPs. This is a requirement as part of the state law for third grade promotion. And so it is for all third graders who may not make the score on the Florida Standards Assessment or FSA. So I wanted to see if anyone,
Lynn, Ms. Gray wanted to tag in on something. Go ahead, Ms. Gray.
You're muted.
Yeah, Kim, finish what you wanted to say. I wanted to address very briefly Josephine Amato's question.
okay, no, I was done, Ms. Gray.
Oh, so, you know, as a classroom teacher in the elementary and the high school, in the middle school, when I have a IEP from a student and I sit down with the parent as well. So Josephine, it's supposed to be a coordinated effort. And then there are certain areas in a classroom, for example, my child needs to sit in the front of the room, in front of the teacher. You know, this is, and Kim knows this is all part of the, like a checklist, but teachers must, because it is a federal state law, must comply. If they're out of compliance, then that has to be, you know, that's mitigated by probably the office of Kim and Deborah. But what I want to say is that classroom teachers are all part of this process, and it is complicated, but most of the kids, many of the kids are definitely recognized, because I used to have a folder, or folders plural, of the children that had the IEPs to make sure I followed. So I just wanted to share that it's very much done, and it has to be done by law. That's it.
Thank you. Now I wanted to check in because there's portfolios and there's a question about the other portfolio, which I wanted to address after Tina spoke about the third grade portfolio. And the other is the portfolio that may be part of the graduation requirements for students with disabilities that are instructed through access points. So this portfolio addresses students that may not pass the Florida Standards Alternate Assessment, in particular for 10th grade FSAA, reading or English language arts, and for the Algebra 1 graduation requirements. Those two have an end of course exam requirement. And if a student on the alternate assessment does not pass that alternate assessment, then they may receive a waiver, and part of that waiver has a requirement of a portfolio which will show the student has met the standards for that particular end of course exam. So whereas a student may not have demonstrated what they know on that end of course exam, they're able to demonstrate it within the portfolio, and that portfolio can include work samples. It might include video recording of the student performing a task that actually demonstrates the requirement within that standard. It could be a performance task. It could be a lot of different ways of documenting that the student is able to show that they met the standards for those particular end of course exams.
Kim, I just wanted to also add that that portfolio requirement does not exist for students who are taught and assessed on the regular assessment. They can get a waiver, but there does not have to be the production of a portfolio where it's putting together evidence to show that the student met the standards.
So back to the third grade portfolio, she stated there's 11 items that is included in that process. Where can the parent get a list of those 11 items to know, to keep track of what their kids are good in, improving in, see which assessments they're passing? And how do a parent get invited to, to the table when they're making those decisions? Because a lot of that is not happening.
So any school can, all they have to do is just ask their school, and they have a copy of the grade 3 student promotion retention portfolio documentation. It's just a single sheet with like a list of everything. And so, their teacher, the assistant principal, anybody at the school could have it. And, and parents are always welcome at the table when they sit down and compile all of the evidence that is on that portfolio. So it's really like they kind of are working through that throughout the year and keeping track, because everybody takes baselines, everybody takes the mid-years. So they just keep track of it as they go throughout the year, so that at the end of the year, nobody's like scrambling trying to give a little kid a bunch of assessments to try to help them pass. So, at the end of the year, when they get after we've gotten FSA scores and we know whether or not we have to look to the portfolio for promotion, then, a parent is always welcome at the table. And, the teacher, AP, anybody, just say so. I know many schools do already invite them when they come in. I know it maybe isn't the same everywhere. So if a parent wants to be there, all they got to do is just let their teacher know.
So you're going to be requesting, that parent conference or parent teacher conference with that third grade gen ed teacher. Certainly reach out to your case manager also. And as Tina pointed out, if you don't get the response, then you may want to talk to the assistant principal at the school site. But, having the parent as a partner through this is really important, just for the reasons that Earlishia shared, right? Being able to keep track, know what your child is working on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that document located online as well if they are unable to access it from the school?
I think so.
I believe it is. I see that Jennifer Rogers said that it is on the SDHC website. So
yeah, the website was just updated, so we're still all learning the new website and where everything is.
Oh no, I was just asking if it is on the website.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. We'll have to look again, because this is part of the general education curriculum. We can go in there and while this is going on and see if we can find it all at the same time, or find a link. It may be on the DOE website as well. So we can look and see. If not, we can get the information and send it to Frank. So Frank, I don't know if that's possible to then send it out to the participants or post it. I believe you said to post it, which would be a great place to put it. And I
saw a question too from Carla Davila about a 10th grade waiver. And the question is this only a requirement for students on access points, or does it include students with an IEP in a regular class? And the waiver is available to students with an IEP, whether you're in a regular class or you're being instructed on access points. The only difference is that if you are instructed on access points and you are granted a waiver, then the graduation portfolio for that course would go along with it, versus if you're in a regular class, simply because the work is a little bit easier to show. The student work and the tests and quizzes and everything is a little bit easier to show mastery of the coursework and the standards. Sometimes in an access point classroom, like Kim was saying before, there's not like a set way that portfolio has to look, because it's all based off of individual students and how they can show what they know. So whether it's through a video or, you know, a collection of some evidence, a mixture, it can look all different ways. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so, Mr.
You
B,
had a question? Yeah. Josephine, you had a question? Yeah.
I have like a question and a comment because I'm concerned about some of the parents I'm hearing and listening to some of the parents, and as an advocate in the district. I want to be really clear. I think we should be really clear that parents are, it's not just asking, parents are legally allowed to be participants in every aspect of the student's education. So if you have a question or you want to participate, or if you need to see a portfolio, if you need to see records, I always suggest put it in the email, make a request. It is your legal right as a parent, especially with a student with a disability, to have full participation in all decisions related to your student. So this is especially important for people, for our parents who do not speak English. We have a very heavy lift in Hillsborough County Public Schools to provide equal access to education for our students with disabilities for our parents who do not speak English. It is a legal requirement for our parents to fully participate in their students' education, and in order to do so, they must have translators. How hard this is for all of us to understand all the statutes and the requirements. Imagine doing that in a second language. I do it in 2 languages, and it is a heavy lift. And getting some of the documents in multiple languages is also a problem. But I want parents to understand, it's not like you're asking for a favor. This is your legal right. And I just really want to clarify that for our parents.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amato. I appreciate you saying that, because it is important for our parents to be involved in the decision-making process. And you know this much better than I do, so I appreciate you saying that. Thank you, Earlishia. Is there anything else on portfolios that any of our panel wants to add to that? Because if not, we're going to keep moving forward.
Okay. So if someone is asking about, Ms. Workman stated the caseworker. Who's the caseworker, and how are kids assigned caseworkers in schools? And do all schools have caseworkers?
Okay. So a case manager is the ESE teacher that the child is assigned to, who helps to coordinate the IEP team. Typically for meeting, a lot of times you'll have students that have several different ESE teachers or therapists and providers, but every student with an IEP is assigned a case manager that helps to be the coordinator. Now, how case managers are assigned is a school-based decision. Typically, it's different in elementary than as the students go into secondary school. Typically for elementary, it's the ESE teacher who serves the student the greatest amount of time. Again, still a school-based decision. That's just a typical scenario. In high school, it becomes a little bit different. Oftentimes, students are assigned in their freshman year, and they'll keep the same case manager throughout. Just different high schools have different ways of assigning those case managers.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, excellent stuff. I'm going to direct my next question to Ms. Rogers here, because she brought it up last week. And I'm actually going to give you 2 questions, but I want you to answer the first one because you brought it up, and then start the second one. And I'd like the panel to kind of fill in from there. So Ms. Jen, when you and I spoke last week, you said when an IEP team gets together and starts with the IEP, they should have the end in mind. What did you mean by that?
Well, in any project plan, what is the end in mind for your student? The short-term end is graduate to the next grade. If my child is in 2nd grade, I want them to get to 3rd grade. How are we going to get there? That's the option. The ultimate end in mind is I want my child to it could vary. It could be I want my child to successfully graduate high school. It could be the end of I would like to find a way to transition my child out of access points into general ed. That is the decision to be made with the IEP team. The parent can say, as a parent, I see, oh, I really wish Johnny could get out of access points and have more general ed classes, or whatever that significant goal that year is. So you start backwards. And then once you have the consensus of the IEP team, everybody says, yes, we definitely agree. Johnny has the ability to transition into general ed class. That's the goal. And then how are we going to do it? So you work backwards every single time. Is that the first question?
Yes, that was the first question, because I know you brought that up to me. So the next one, I want you to kind of start off and then everyone jump in where they feel comfortable. You mentioned, we talked about what is the difference between a medical versus an academic eligibility when it comes to diagnosis.
Right. So a lot of times on the IEP specifically, it's supporting multiple aspects. In the ESE world, we're talking about children that may be have autism. They may be intellectually disabled. They may be developmentally delayed or disabled at a younger age. How do you get those diagnoses? There's a differentiation between a medical diagnosis and then the academic diagnoses. I know from my you may have a learning disability, even such as dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, that may be identified and diagnosed by a private therapeutic doctor. Many children go to a private doctor for a psychological evaluation or an evaluation by a psychologist for autism. So I came with, hey, school, my son is diagnosed with autism. They will then take, or whatever the diagnosis may be, they will take then that medical diagnosis and then co-validate it and make sure that his needs, although he may have the medical diagnosis, does that medical diagnosis align with the academic diagnosis that it prevents him from functioning the same as his peers in the school setting.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Kim. Exactly. Yes.
I was just going to ask Suzette Sample to weigh in on the difference between medical diagnosis and then educational eligibilities.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you clarified on that, because interestingly, when I looked at the questions, I didn't know if you were talking about the process of the meeting or the requirements for an IEP. So what you just brought out helped me to understand better what you're asking. And when it comes to a medical diagnosis is made by a doctor. Diagnoses can be made when parents take their children to a private provider of any type. And that information is all very important and has to be considered by the school when we're looking at identifying a student with a disability. However, there is specific criteria under both federal and state law with regard to an educational disability under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So a doctor, for example, cannot make your child eligible under the IDEA, nor can a private psychologist. But what that information can do is help inform a school team in what further information would be necessary in order to address all of those required pieces per our State Board of Education rule in identifying whether or not a student has a disability in need of specially designed instruction and or related services. And so there are specific components that go into that. And I think it can be very frustrating for parents when they don't understand it's kind of a two-pronged process. There's that piece that you spend all that time and money getting done, and then you come to the school and expect that you've done everything you needed to do. And certainly that's appreciated when that occurs. It's not required. The school district will evaluate a child for free, but we don't make medical diagnoses. We make educational determinations on eligibility under using our state board rule under the IDEA. So I don't know if that addressed it, but feel free to follow up.
Also, I want to jump in and say that the eligibility categories are umbrella categories. And Jennifer talked about that with specific learning disabilities. It could be several different disorders that fall under that. Other health impairment, the same thing, several different disorders. And you have many students with medical diagnosis that may never be eligible for special education services because they don't necessarily meet the criteria.
And I'd like to also add, you could have a medical diagnosis or condition of concern under 504 to be found eligible as well.
Also, I think for a lot of parents that I've interacted with, there's the misnomer of, okay, I have a child that has dysgraphia. They have a very hard time handwriting. They qualify for private therapeutic services through an occupational therapist, but then when they're assessed in the school system views them as competent and not requiring assistance and supports. So also helping parents be aware that there is a differentiation of the threshold of the measurements of success academically versus private medically. A lot of parents are not aware of that existence.
That is true. That is true. And in the private arena, they are required for insurance purposes to have a diagnosis. So oftentimes what they're required to do is different. And that I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I think that's a source of frustration sometimes, or lack of a misunderstanding. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Earlishia.
I want to follow up with that topic. How is that explained to parents? Who would explain that to a parent? Because as a mother of a child with a disability, he had epilepsy. He graduated from Jefferson last year, but no one explained that to me. So who should be that person to educate the parent on the process in a way that the parent can understand? Down and explain it in layman's terms for those parents.
So ideally, when those questions are asked of the people that you encounter from special education at the school, ideally you would get an answer that was understandable. But everyone, everyone has their focus. So if you don't feel satisfied or a parent still doesn't understand, there are so many of us out in the areas and in the district offices that do this every day. So it's very different. You could have the best teacher in the world for your child who does a phenomenal job, but maybe isn't able to explain to you what you're asking because they don't deal with that every day. That's not their arena. So there are many of us, around the district who do that, who understand those processes very well. There are staffing specialists and supervisors and district resource teachers and supervisors. It sounds like there's a lot of us. There aren't a lot of us, but we are spread out across the district. And I would encourage parents at any time they have a question, to reach out, because I think if we answered those questions early on, it would prevent so much confusion and heartache as you proceed through the process.
Right.
So,
I agree. And a lot of parents don't know what questions to ask. With so many of you guys with the process, know the process, put a cheat sheet together, put like some questions that you get a lot and break it down and have that available at the IEP meetings, because a lot of parents don't know what to ask. So with them not knowing what to ask, they won't ask any questions at all.
That's a great idea.
And it has to be done in Spanish as well, Earlishia, because it's like a mystery going on, a different language. So
I totally agree, Ms. Gray.
So if I could just add though to what Ms. Gray just said, I'm sorry, we do have parent liaisons in our district. I know Sandy Boucher is on here, and those are parents of children with disability. So they have an understanding and can kind of see and help navigate through both you know, from both angles, if you will. So they see both sides and can be very, very helpful. And I say that only because I saw Sandy on here and she does speak Spanish. And I agree with you, Miss Gray. It is so important to be able to communicate with parents in their native language. And to the extent that we can do that, we certainly try to have people in place to do that. And when, you know, so that's, yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, you wanted to add something to that?
Suzette did. I was going to just simply say we have the parent liaison group, but I would like to point out to parents as well. You said your son was identified. If you suspect that your child has a disability or would like to have your child evaluated, you would reach out first to the guidance counselor at the school. That's typically the first person that you would reach out to. And then from there, the guidance counselor will work to get consent for whatever it is where your concern is, or the area of interest or concern, or whatever it is you have as a parent, as well as the school. But I did want to point out about the parent liaison. They do a phenomenal job. Parents liaisons in Hillsborough County, they're part-time, but all of them have a child who has a disability. So they come from a different lens of being knowledgeable, as well as from a parent perspective as well.
And I could just suggest the parent services page of the Fiddler's website is full of, information and resources. And there's a calendar of trainings for parents and webinars that help with the IEP process. And all different aspects of education and for students with disabilities.
Thank you, guys. And follow-up question on that. The process, right? Like I stated, my son, it took him a long time to get through the process, to get him tested, to actually get him in front of a teacher that knew what was going on to help get the process started. So why is the process so long? How long should the process really be? Should a child wait a whole school year to get tested? I know we do the RTI process, and as we all know, that's not something that is happening on the regular with a lot of substitutes in the classroom. So what are the steps to put things in place for kids who need the services, and so they won't have to wait 2-3 years to get them?
Deborah, are you taking that, or do you want me to?
Yes, I'm trying to find my mic.
It looked like you were.
Yes. So as I stated previously, it would start with the child study team. Once the child study team meets and the parent gives consent to evaluate, from there, if you're looking at an IDEA situation or looking at IDEA eligibility under the 13 categories, then we have 60 days to evaluate, okay, 60 calendar days. That doesn't include, holidays or when the schools are closed. From there, we then have 30 days to go to eligibility to determine if the child is eligible for ESE services. If you're looking at a student who is 504 eligible, there's no specific timeline. We just simply say reasonable, okay? Of course, it should at least be what we're looking at for IDEA, but it's reasonable. But in both cases, I do want to stress, even though we're saying 60 days, yes, that's to evaluate, and then we have 30 days to look at an IEP. Sometimes situations arise that could warrant it taking longer. I've had numerous cases where maybe a child had something traumatic happen, and because of that, the evaluator did not feel that was the best assessment of the child. So I do encourage whomever it is to speak with the school personnel, the child study team, as well as the evaluator who's evaluating the child. And I'd like to follow up with that too. And once your child is evaluated or found eligible for ESE services, we then review annually. But if a parent at any point in time have something come up, by all means reach out. We always try to partner with parents, and we can only partner if parents share.
I totally agree there with you, Deborah. I think one of the biggest misnomers that I learned over the years of being advocating is it's school days. It's not calendar days. It's not weekends. It's counts only for the days that you're in school. And I think a lot of parents have that misnomer and misunderstanding. And the other thing that I love to encourage parents and everybody involved on the IEP team is the IEP in the 504 is a living document, and it can be updated at any time when appropriate. Many parents, again, have the misnomer that they can only update those documents during the annual review. But no, if you see something that is significant, say, for example, a goal is for your child to learn multiplication 0, 1, 2, and 5 in the year, but they master that in the first 9 weeks, you could definitely recall the IEP team to reconvene and update that informally, that goal, to meet the next opportunities and make that goal more aggressive. So parents need to know that they're empowered to request reviews and updates throughout the year when appropriate, not just the annual review time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Rogers.
I also wanted to add, you know, once we, there's no timeline in regards to eligibility. I'm sorry, I was speaking quickly, so I want to make sure I'm clear on that. So we have 60 days to evaluate. There's no specific timeline in determining that eligibility. That's when I was speaking of something else could arise during that. I've had a lot of situations where I've had kids have accidents. Maybe they broke an arm or something, just something that we really want to make sure we develop a very good plan, either 504 or IEP for the child.
Ms. Mitchell, so I want to follow the RTI process. So we stated that the parent can request the child be tested. If they're in the RTI process and they're still at level 2, because they stay at level 2 for quite a while sometimes, can a parent still have their child tested, or do they have to wait till that RTI process is and they're on level 3?
Before you answer that, there's a question. What is RTI?
Okay, so Deborah, did you want to take that, or?
You can go ahead, because RTI is part of me, so I'll let you have that one.
So RTI stands for Response to Intervention. It's also referred to sometimes as MTSS, which is Multi-Tiered System of Support. It used to be known as General Education Interventions, and all of those things are required pieces prior to identifying a student with a disability. However, to respond to your question, if a parent requests an evaluation, then the team determines, yes, we're moving forward with that evaluation. Then where they are in the RTI process is going to determine what they're doing concurrent with the evaluations. So they can do those interventions as they're evaluating. But at the time that you make that request, if there's not agreement to postpone or delay or see how that child is responding, the team either agrees to move forward and get your consent to do so, or they would issue a notice of refusal to evaluate at that time. So one of those two things has to happen. But no, you shouldn't be said, oh, we need to wait until the RTI is finished, because honestly, it's never finished. If a child is responding to an intervention, we want to continue with that even after they've been identified as a student with a disability. The intervention, if something is working, we keep doing that if they're responding to it. And if it's not, then we want to revisit it. So, so that should not delay the process.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, did you want to add something to that?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So a question in the chat, can you speak to the IEP transition from elementary to middle and middle to high school?
Kim, you're on mute.
She had
found my microphone. So absolutely, we can speak to that, but I'd like to start one step earlier and ask Joanne Manwaring to start the discussion of transition, or what we refer to as articulation. There's another bit of confusing terminology because transition has a specific meaning, which Michelle Carell will talk about, but we talk about articulating students from level to level as they transition from grades. So Joanne, can you start us off with the information about pre-K?
Yep, sorry. Yes, our little ones come into us and at age 3, and when it's time for them to move towards kindergarten, we call it exiting pre-K ESE, and they go through a process determined by the IEP team with the parents fully participatory about what needs to happen in order for them to transition. Do they need a complete reevaluation? They look at the teacher data, they look at all the progress monitoring tools that we use in pre-K and how children are moving along with the Florida Developmental Early Learning Standards, and talk about what kinds of services are available at the kindergarten level and what the child may or may not need. So that's the first step after spending time in pre-K, and now it's time to enter kindergarten. And it's a big decision-making time, of course, for families. And I think our teachers and our staffing specialists really try to help families make that transition into big school, if you will.
Thank you, Joanne. And I'm going to ask Sharon Foster, who is our regional supervisor of elementary, to talk a little bit about the transition from elementary to middle school.
Okay.
And middle school to high school.
Right. Thank you. It's really important for our teachers in elementary to collaborate with the middle school teachers, so that our students, our teachers will understand the needs of the students, such as health concerns, behavior plans, what their IEPs require. So lots of times our elementary and our middle school IEP teams will invite a representative from the next level to attend those meetings and talk about the needs of the student. So the big word is the collaboration, so that when little Sam goes to middle school, the teachers have an understanding, or the specialists have an understanding of what his needs are. So we're not like starting just from reading an IEP.
And if I can just jump in, our regional teams actually collect data on each student that's transitioning. So if the student has any special behavior plans, medical plans, crisis or supervision plans, they collect that information so that they can assist with the follow-up. But we fully expect the schools to also be collaborating that type of information with the receiving school. And just even last week, as we were doing master schedule review checks, that was one of the questions for the school sites. Okay, how are you articulating all of that specific information that's so critical for that receiving school to need, the receiving school to get? And there are phone calls, they have meetings, they do open houses, they do even tours where the students may go over and get to tour the receiving school. So it's a multi-pronged approach, so we can make sure that the sending school is providing all of the information for our students to be successful. And then I want to, from there, move to Michelle Carell, who can talk about transition and transition to post-secondary life for our students.
Yes, so I'll bring in transition as another definition, right? So this is basically our students have met graduation and they are transitioning into life after high school. So that can look like a variety of different things. It could look like a student who may want to go into the military, or they may want to get some sort of a post-secondary training of sorts. They may want to work with an agency to prepare themselves in other facets of life. It looks different for every student. It's very individualized.
Can you share some of the special programs that we do to help students transition?
Sure. So we have a few programs that we offer in the K-12, well, high school truly setting. We have a program, it's called 12 Plus. It's called truly 12 Plus program, and I'll explain that because it gets a little confusing, because I think everybody thinks of 12 Plus as just, older than 12th grade, but it's actually called 12 Plus. And this is a program that highlights on a variety of different features. We have students who are learning about daily living skills, self-advocacy skills, organizational strategies. They're in different courses that they don't typically take when they're in that 9 through 12 setting. They also learn about work skills either in the school setting or, well, I'll say that. And then of course, community awareness. We also have a Choice Academy and a GMAC program, which really the only difference between those two programs is just really the name and the setting. So it just, I think, helps for us at a glance to know the difference. But add everything that I just told you, which also includes, and I forgot to mention this, but school-based enterprises, which I know Lynn Gray has seen personally at Rosac and has visited. I have photos. And then we also have service learning projects. So students, again, are working within the community to make, they're identifying a problem within the community, and then they're figuring out together through a systematic plan how to make it better for their community. The GMAC and Choice Academy also adds a work off-campus component. So they go off campus 1 day a week to a partnering business that has a contract with us, and they learn job skills on the business campus. So those are the three that we offer in the 9 through 12 settings. We also have some programs in the post-secondary setting that are housed mainly through Brewster Technical College. So those are reach and stages. So they are, again, programs that focus a lot more on work in the actual setting. So we have a stages program is at the University of South Florida, Tampa campus. And students there are learning, they take courses, but they're also learning how to like use the bull runner. They're working and rotating throughout a variety of jobs there on campus. And then the REACH program is similarly, but it's just at the St. Joseph's, the main campus. So the one by the stadium. And again, students have an actual working classroom, but they also can go around to the different participating departments at St. Joseph's, you know, not like the surgical center per se, but, you know, they do things like sterilization and, you know, transportation and things like that. So they are learning job skills that are within the hospital. We also have a Macy's program, and that program is where students learn merchandise handling, and that one is specifically at the Brandon campus. So those are some of the Hillsborough County supported programs that we offer here. And then of course there are a variety of training opportunities held at our, you know, USF and HCC and all of our technical colleges and so on and so forth. Plus all of our adult day training programs, you know, and they all vary just based on interest.
Michelle, this is Mr. Jargo. I just wanted to mention technical colleges also have a number of programs that students can participate in after high school. You know, of course, you mentioned many of them, but we've got many career opportunities, including automotive and welding, air conditioning, health sciences, and computer technologies. And we've got a campus off Hillsborough Avenue at Irwin Technical College, and of course, Brewster near downtown, and Appalachia Technical College in the eastern part of the county, right off the interstate. So many opportunities in addition to the career and technical programs that are available to students, many of the students with disabilities in our high schools. Each high school has some career and technical programs over the wide variety of career clusters. And we do have information available on who has what if you visit our website or contact our office.
Wow, Frank, I think I have just found my next month topic for the exceptionally special happy hour. I know a lot of parents, especially that are articulating out of high school into the transition, are really excited for that. So maybe Michelle and Mr. Jargo, you might join us next month and talk about that.
Sure.
And there was a question about who a parent could talk to determine which of these best suit their students. Because they're really great opportunities.
So there's a lot of people to talk to, right? It's not just a one person answer. I mean, you can talk to, and it depends, of course, on the level of the student too. So I'll just kind of be varied in my answer. You can talk to students, students can talk to even like their teachers and professors and talk about the courses that they're taking now and how biology might relate to them, their medical field, or how geometry would relate to construction, or, you know, what, you know, that part is very varied. And then Chris already mentioned the CTE teachers and how, you know, you can talk to CTE teachers. You know, a lot of those CTE teachers are connected to people in the industry. They have big connections. I see it all the time, the, you know, high fives when they run into each other at various trips. Chris and I work together, and I get to see it firsthand in that way. You know, guidance counselors too, of course, they can share what's available, what kind of programs are available at what types of schools. We also offer, we have transition specialists. So Jennifer, I'm sure that you probably know you're a transition specialist. And if you don't, we'll talk, but I'm sure that you do. They offer, you know, community resources and agency connections, and they can tell you a little bit about what's available too. And we offer just a variety of just different programs. We even have a, I love him. We even have an, I want to think for a second. His title is, he's an instructional apprenticeship coordinator. So we have somebody, if you have students who might be interested in apprenticeships, Billy Wilkerson is specifically geared towards that. He's another one. I see him very connected to everybody in the agency, giving high fives to people as he sees them. It's just a really close-knit, connected group of people. So, and again, our post-secondary colleges and universities, Chris mentioned, you know, the post-secondary schools, they without any problem will come and speak to students. We've done it ourselves in the transition department, ask them to come and talk to our students about what programs are available, because, you know, not every program, as Chris mentioned, is offered at every campus. But, you know, we can inform you that, hey, for this, you know, for this interest, you can go to these 2 campuses. That's available. So, and then of course, at the community college and university level, locally, we have very close relationships with their Office of Students with Disabilities, and they too can. Right now, we're doing a lot through Zoom, as like this meeting, right? So, but you know, we're still able to make those connections and allow for students to meet and be introduced to, you know, those who can help them in the post-secondary, you know, endeavors that they may have.
And I'm going to place my email address in our chat. So anyone with career and technical questions, feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to speak to you about any topics related to that. Thank you.
Okay, quickly.
Go ahead, Ms.
I did want to share that the link was posted by Jenny Gregorio, who is another one of our parent liaisons for creating a plan for the future. Yes. You know, this was one of the pluses of some of the tools we learned during COVID, which is we went all virtual for this fair, which provides just a wealth of information for parents for post-secondary opportunities and ways to start preparing for that post-secondary life. So please go look. All the sessions were recorded, and so you have on-demand access at any time.
Thank you, Ms. Workman. Thank you so much, Michelle and Mr. Jargo for that. I knew, Mr. Jargo, that was going to be where you're jump in, so I'm glad you did. Ms. Motto, I did see your question. I definitely want to come to it. We want to hit certain points tonight, but we won't forget you. She has been waiting very patiently, and I'm so happy to have her on. So I want to turn over to Ms. Davis here. And she's going to be on here talking hopefully a little bit about legislative, what we're doing both at the county and at the state level. I know we talked a little bit about students' rights, parents' rights, but I'd like for you to kind of maybe get a little more deeper in that if you can.
Thank you, Frank. Kristen Davis, Director of Government Affairs for Hillsborough County Public Schools. Appreciate your intro. I won't take up too much of your time because I know it's getting late. But I did want to mention there are a number of bills that have been introduced, like there are every year, related to ESE, IEPs. Many of them are not really, they're not moving. They are moving, or the companion bill's not moving, or they don't have a companion bill. So we're watching them close. But I will mention some that are moving that have some language related to IEPs and ESE. You've probably heard a little bit about student retention. The giving parents rights to be able to retain the student in third grade, or in even some cases, they're kind of doing a blanket K-5 parental rights to be able to retain a student. So there are mentions in there that do guarantee that if student has an IEP, the IEP team will review it, the IEP, as well as to make sure that it's up to date based on any changes that may happen related to a student's retention. So that those protections are included in there. And again, these are very pockets, they're different pockets of bills that have similar language. So at some point, as many of you know, they will come together and have some sort of perhaps final bill or train bill. That's our, the larger bills. So I did want to mention about student retention. Related to earlier, we were just talking about the post-secondary planning. There is a House bill that has a wide plethora of sponsors, both it's a nonpartisan related to the planning. So students, I made a note here because it has some good language. But basically, when you're doing post-secondary planning for example, like a student with disabilities, it would require that the IEP team plan for the post-secondary and grade 7 or around the age of 12. So that has moved, has a lot of support, has committee support, legislative support, but the Senate version is not moving very far. So, but we're keeping our eye on it. And then really the last thing I'll mention is around the vouchers and school choice bills. Most of you are all very familiar with Senate Bill 48, sponsored by Senator Diaz, and that's already kind of done and passed that, and that's already taken care of. The House just released their version of a choice bill, similar but very different. We are also watching that. I anticipate that they will come together with something. We do know that the leadership has made it a priority that there will be a voucher scholarship bill. So what that looks like, we don't know yet, because 48 basically combines the 5 scholarship programs into 2 different buckets. And then this version by Representative Randy Fine, that's House Bill 7045, basically repeals Gardner-McKay, transitions those students into the Family Empowerment Scholarship, significantly expands eligibility, and kind of does a number of other things. But again, we foresee this to continue to change. So I will open it up if there's any questions, or otherwise certainly happy to share with Frank the bill numbers and the bills. And Frank, of course, you're more than welcome to share the legislative updates that we do send, because there'll probably be changes by the update we put together this Friday.
Awesome. Any questions for Ms. Davis at all? And as I ask you guys that, and ladies that, if you want to put, or for our panel, put in your email and what you do. That way, everyone can maybe click onto that. If they have questions later on, they'll have that to be able to ask you directly. So I invite you to do that. And Earlishia, they covered everything. They got all of our questions. I mean, it's amazing.
They did.
They did an amazing job. So I'm going to just say something real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Miss Gray and Earlishia to take us home. I invite all of you, and also to share out, we have a Jen. You know what? I'm just going to let Jen Rogers talk about it, because this is her brainchild anyway. I don't want to steal anything away from her. Tell us what you do on Tuesday nights.
Well, on Tuesday nights, I host the second Tuesday of each month. I host the Exceptional Special Happy Hour. It's an open forum for anybody, any parent or caregiver of a student that's under the ESE umbrella. They come in with questions. I've had everything from elementary to high school. So I sit there, we ask questions, we have discussions, I give advice. I give them direction to resources either on the school district website or through Fiddlers or FNDPSN or any of the resources that I know. If they don't have questions, then I'll reach out to my network for the clarification and try to get them to the right resources in the district. I've actually held one, hopefully more will be forthcoming, middle school meetup for those students that are in middle school that are looking just to meet other friends. We did that over spring break at Lettuce Lake Park, and it was great. Last month, I actually had Mallory Kalaki, ESC specialist at Walker Magnet Middle School, held talking about articulation and transition, and the parents found that very helpful. And I'm hearing that I might be having some 12 plus and post-secondary discussions as well to help educate and make parents aware of that. So if you have an agenda, if you have a topic that you would like to discuss, I am always looking for guest speakers, maybe talking about ESY, the process of RTI, MPSS, anything like that, going through the acronym dictionary. I please reach out. I put my email on there. So I'm always looking for information and resources to share with others.
Well, and if I can just go ahead and throw a voice in, and Earlishia, I'll let you close it up. Thank you, Frank, for the opportunity, and Earlishia. I just want to thank the ESE staff and of course, Chris Jargo from the vocational tech, but the ESE is a complicated, very complicated process, and the acronyms, as Earlishia said, we need a cheat sheet because there's a lot of those acronyms that have a lot of direct meaning to your child and to the listeners here. So Earlishia, I will follow through. You'll let me know what kind of cheat sheet you're looking at, but I'm already thinking at least the acronyms would be very important. And I'm very relieved to hear that the Hispanic language is being represented too, because 38% of our population, student population, is Hispanic. So I just want to thank everybody for the expertise. My goodness, you all have so much to contribute. Kristen, we'll hear you again tomorrow night. We have our school board meeting tomorrow, and Kristen does do a 2-minute update as well. So without further ado, I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to say good night, and I guess Earlishia will want to close it down. Earlishia?
Thank you guys again for all of this great information. I learned so much. So I have something now I can take and share with parents that I work with in the community. And so I appreciate all you guys for taking this time out, sharing the knowledge with our families. This will not be the last time we have these conversations, because there's so much more that we can touch on and so much more information we can share with our families, our military families, our Hispanic families, our Swahili families. So it's so many other components that we can tag and touch on. And I just love this comfort space that we've made to have parents join in and ask those questions and don't feel like they're being judged. And this, I love this. This is what I do. That's why I love advocacy. So thank you guys. And like Frank said, you can put your information in the chat so parents can reach out and, and ask other questions, or just to say thank you would be great. And one more
well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
I know that my
every second Saturday of the month, PTA meet up and walk. And we have parents come out and talk and walk and talk and help and encourage each other. So if you guys want to come join us, we meet up at different parks around town so we can touch bases with all the communities. Come on and walk with us. We have so much fun. It's a great opportunity. And it's good to see other families, other parents who are experiencing some of the things that you're experiencing, sharing ideas and suggestions with each other.
Hey, Earlishia, I'm sorry. We did have a couple questions. I know I promised Ms. Amato an answer to hers. And, should we, Ms. Amato, do you want to just email somebody and get a better answer than?
Well, I'll just, send it to you guys. I think it's a whole topic within itself. So I love this. I thank everyone for being here and doing this. I love to see this more and more. I love the turnout. I think this is a very big topic. And so I was talking about related services, and we can spend like 2 hours on that. So I would just love an opportunity if we could keep doing this. And I really appreciate everyone doing this together and working together for our kids.
I think we're planning once a month, if I'm not mistaken. I think Earlishia and Frank and myself, obviously the subject matter will change accordingly, but there's nothing better than a fireside chat, if you will, of like minds and expertise. Brings us all together and in an informal way. So that's the better part of a meeting.
And then there was a question Amy posted from somebody watching on Facebook. They have a 7th grader, so have a middle schooler with an IEP. Have you yet to hear from anyone regarding 7th grade or middle school? Is there anybody who wants to touch on that, or just put their email in?
Well, sure. I was going to say they can reach out to me, and then that way I can reach out to the school and get some conversation and follow up. We didn't address, the transition to every grade level. I realized we just went from, the big levels and school levels. But yes, please just reach out to me, kimberly.workman@hcps.net, and we can address your concerns.
Thank you. All right, Earlishia, now it's your turn. You take it home.
Thank you again, everyone. I will be getting with Ms. Workman to try to put that cheat sheet together because, oh my gosh, imagine having some information at your hands when you're at this IEP meeting to look and say, oh, that's what that means. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So, and Ms. Mitchell, you as well, I would love to touch bases with you just so we can make sure that we're educating our parents on the process the correct way so we can eliminate some of the unnecessary conversations, unnecessary stress in parents' lives.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate the forum. I know my team appreciates this opportunity to speak with everyone, and those cheat sheets, but we've got a lot of resources already available. So having another venue to be able to share is great, just so we can reach that many more parents. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sounds like an organic way to develop a stronger knowledge base to share not only internally among staff, but with the parents too. So great.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
All right, so thank you all again so much. Earlishia and I are so thankful to have so many great resources in our community. And we're thankful that all of you gave up an hour and 10 minutes of your day to be here with us and sharing. And as Ms. Amato said, this conversation can continue to go. And I love the positivity of it. I think that's the most, one of the best things about this. We're hearing so many great solutions to the questions. And so thank you all. I bid you all a great night, and hopefully I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you.